the Lions Den with Stephen Carr. We have a special guest with us this morning at 9 a.m. Candidate for Superior Court, Maria Batista, who is from Clarion County, I believe.
Correct.
And she is right at the Superior Court, right?
I'm running for judge of the
And
Superior
she has
Court.
been, judge on Superior Court. And she has been out campaigning since the primary and for the primary and working her butt off. And so we were glad to have her on the show today. Why don't you give a little bit of a background about you and how the campaign is going, and we'll go from there.
Well, good morning, Stephen. It's great to be with you again. I'm working very, very hard. I've traveled across this entire Commonwealth. Since May 20th, I've been to 65 of 67 counties, so I only have a couple left to go. And, it's really important that a candidate, regardless of who they are, tries to reach as many voters as they possibly can. Um, People are looking for individuals that are running for office that they believe that are they can trust and are going to do the right thing. Even in the court systems, they may not know much about the Superior Court, but they've seen a lot of things on TV about judges, whether it's at the federal or state level, and they just want to know is if it's them, are they going to get a fair chance? Are they going to have an opportunity if they are a party to an action that the fix isn't in, and that the judges that are assigned to their case are going to do what's right, being fair and impartial, keeping politics out of the courtroom, and any bias or prejudice. I think the best compliment that I've received over the last couple months was from a young man, young adult, I would say late 20s, early 30s maybe. And he said, you seem so real. In other words, that I was reachable, that I was one that they could relate to, that I was one of them. And, I come from a very rural county. I come from Clarion County. I hail from the northwestern part of Pennsylvania. This judge has 15 judges on it, this court, Superior Court. Not one of those 14 judges currently sitting are from a rural county. Most are from Allegheny County or Philadelphia or the collar counties around Philadelphia. One judge is from Cumberland County. But there's really no representation of most of the people in this Commonwealth from someone from a rural county. And I think that's very important, but that's not the only criteria. Obviously, that just gives you a different perspective from someone that was raised in a rural county. I've practiced law across this Commonwealth. I'm a former prosecutor. I'm the only former prosecutor that's a candidate for this race. There's three candidates. Most people don't realize there's a third candidate in this race right now, a third party candidate. And about 60% of cases that go to the Superior Court, if they're appealed from a court of common pleas in any of the 67 counties, which people are familiar with the court of common pleas, but if someone believes that there was an error by a judge or judges in the court of common pleas, then they have a right to appeal all criminal cases. And all those cases on the criminal side, if appealed, would go to the Superior Court. That is about 60% of the caseload. Then I ask folks when I'm traveling, do you care about your families, your children, your grandchildren? Everyone raises their hand. Do you care about your property rights? People raise their hands. If you're a business owner, do you believe that you have certain rights and you want to protect the interests of your business? People raise their hand. If a loved one passes away and there are assets that have to be distributed, and you say there's a dispute between the parties of where those assets are going to go, do they believe that the importance of where those assets go are something that they want to protect? And the answer is always yes. And if you're injured, and I'm not talking about workers' comp because that's different, but if you're injured, whether it's in a hospital setting, a car hits you, even in a simple assault case, you have injuries, whatever the case might be, there's a variety of ways that someone could become injured. And there's all different types of cases, even from something that you purchase at the store, and they have different labels, attached to it. But all of those types of categories of cases, and there are thousands of them. People are most familiar like child custody cases. adoption cases. A property dispute might be a right of way. But there's so many cases, contracts. If they are appealed, they go to the Superior Court. And it's random. It is random on what three judges are assigned to your case. There's 15 judges. Most cases, not all, but the majority of cases are heard by a panel of three judges. Right now, there are 8 Democrats, there are 6 Republicans, and 1 vacancy. If you were a betting person, and I'm not, but if you were, which one's going to come up the most? 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, or 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, based on the numbers that we have, 8 and 6. Most, not the majority of cases, if it's random, what's going to come up more often than not are 2 Democrats, 1 Republican on a panel. Now, it shouldn't matter what our party affiliation is, because when you take an oath to be a judge, you take an oath that you are going to be fair, impartial, keep prejudice and bias out of the courtroom, and no politics for any party, regardless of where they come from, their last name, their ethnic background, their socioeconomic background, their zip code, their family. And none of that should matter. But we've seen that at times that maybe a judge would legislate from the bench. What's that mean? They try to create new law. That is not the role of the courts. The role of the courts is to uphold the laws that are on the books, whether we like it or not, and to uphold our Constitution, both the Pennsylvania and U.S. Constitution as written. And we've seen that sometimes that doesn't happen. I can tell you that if any of your listeners has a friend or family that has a case that goes up, do they want to play Russian roulette with their child of a best interest of where that child is going, and they don't know what 3 judges they're going to get? And what if they did get 2 very liberal thinking judges, and that's the majority opinion? Then you're at their mercy of what that decision is going to be. We can only impact this court if people come out to vote. It is 1 judge at a time. They are 10-year terms. So whoever they vote for, and if they don't come out, you know, if they don't come out and the outcome is not what they wanted, there's no one to blame but ourselves. Judicial races are always in our municipal election cycles in the odd years. We just happen to have this particular vacancy this year on the Superior Court because Dan McCaffrey was a sitting judge on the Superior Court 2 years ago. He won the Supreme Court seat, and now he's a sitting justice. That is why this seat is open. They don't come open very often, and when they do, it is up to the voters to decide. And what people don't realize is that in most states, they don't even have the say of who their judges are on the state courts because they are appointed. And the appointments could be very political, where here, the people still have the right and privilege to vote for the judges in the state, the Court of Common Pleas, and all the appellate courts in Pennsylvania. That is, very few states have that. And so it's up to us, the people, the voters out there, regardless of what their party is they want to find someone that they think that's going to do what's right in every single case. And I am committed to doing that. I've done that in my professional and personal life. I really was a former prosecutor, which is about that 60% that I talked about. But in my private practice, I did the family law, I did the real estate, I did the oil and gas. I've done the estate matters, I've done the business law matters. I've also done some personal injury and insurance defense work early in my career. So all the broad categories that I talked about, I've done in some level as a private practitioner. I'm not aware of my other 2 opponents doing that type of law to that degree. Now, I've never been a sitting judge, but of the 6 Republicans that we have up on the Superior Court, only 1 of the 6 was a prior sitting judge in the Court of Common Pleas in Allegheny County. The other 5 were attorneys, and they have done an excellent job on our court protecting our, the laws and the Constitution, and that's what you want. And so I've done most of the civil types of cases, obviously not every area, but I have experience in those broad areas, and I've done the criminal cases. In addition, I've served under two governors, Governor Corbett, and into the next administration, Governor Wolf. I was an attorney in the Department of Health, where I protected consumers in healthcare facility licensure cases, as well as the Drug Device and Cosmetic Act, which our law enforcement uses every single day. I worked in joint jurisdiction with the Office of Attorney General Healthcare Section. And then I also was in the Department of State as not only a board counsel for both health and business boards, but also as a hearing examiner for over 3 years. In some agencies, that's called an administrative law judge. In the Department of State, we were called hearing examiners or hearing officers. We heard witnesses, we evaluated evidence, we heard expert testimony. The only difference is it wasn't criminal and civil law, it was administrative law because it was dealing with a government agency. And if those cases were ever appealed, they would go to the Commonwealth Court. But I have the same skills, I've written the same complex decisions, which you would be doing as a judge on the Superior Court. So I've checked all the boxes. The other thing that you want to look at as any judge is have they, been involved or engaged in the legal community by giving back. And I've been a continuing legal education lecturer on different areas, whether it's mediation, oral arguments before the appellate courts, healthcare matters, and I could do the same if I became a judge on the Superior Court. Let's go back for a minute to the cases involving families and children. I'm the only candidate, and it's not required, by the way, to be a judge on the Superior Court, but it's helpful. I'm the only candidate that has 5 degrees, 3 of which are in education. I have an elementary ed degree, I have a master's in education, and I have a doctorate in education. So in addition to my law degree, which is a doctorate, I have another doctorate in education. I've taught in the K through 12 setting. I've taught in higher education. Many children today have special needs, whether it's physical or mental need that has to be addressed when you're evaluating the best interest of the child. I have dealt with those types of issues. I taught, like I said, in 6th grade for a period of time. And I also dealt with it with families in my communities and in my own family. And they have something now called autism in the courts. It's a roundtable where you help other judges, especially on the Court of Common Pleas, which is the lower court of the Superior Court, training those judges on how to deal with children that have those types of special needs or autism, because they don't learn the same, they don't answer the same, they can't control some of their types of behaviors. And I have dealt with those types of issues. I helped many families across this Commonwealth if they had a child with autism. And that is additional knowledge that I can bring to the court, not only to the Superior Court, but also to help educate other judges on how to handle and address children when they come to the court, because it's not a friendly place, the courts. We try to make it as much as we can for children, but even for adults. It's intimidating. It's an environment that no one is comfortable with. And to have a judge that has that additional understanding. So what would happen in the Superior Court if a best interest of the child case came up, it would be a cold transcript. It would be the records from the court below, and there would be an issue that's brought up or issues of what is in the, what is the error that's being alleged that the judge that abused his or her discretion below. And I have that additional knowledge that when I'm reviewing the record, I can say, yes, I understand what this report says, because I have this additional training and I can have a better assessment of whether, in fact, there was any abuse of discretion from the court below. And so if you were a betting person and it was your child and it went up there, would you rather have me on that panel of 3? Or would you rather have 3 other judges that has a little bit additional knowledge? Because if you're playing Russian roulette and you don't know who you're getting, and that is going to be the outcome of the case, that's going to impact your family directly. It is important. These cases are important. There are thousands of cases that come to the Superior Court every single year. And the second largest body of law after criminal are the family matters. And like I said, I've done the other types of cases. I was never active duty in our military. My father was. He was in World War II. Battle of the Bulge. My brother was a colonel in the Air Force, and he was also the judge advocate for the state of Ohio. But I did have the opportunity to serve as a civilian for our Navy for weapon system support and contract matters. It took me 2 years to be certified as a contracting officer. So even though it was at the federal level, in addition to the types of contracts I dealt in a private practice, I also have additional 2 years of training as a contracting officer. And even though it's different type of language when you're dealing with the military, it's still additional experience dealing with contracts and looking at different clauses and contracts. And that would be still additional experience that I have that I can bring to the Superior Court. I am the most well-rounded, diverse candidate of the three for the Superior Court. And I am a candidate for all people, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, not just independents or unaffiliated, but for all Pennsylvanians. And many of the people that will come to the Superior Court are not even registered to vote. People just want to know that they have a fair opportunity to be heard, that they are listened to, regardless of the outcome of the case. And if they believe that you did what was right, even if you decide against this person, they have a peace of mind that they at least had a fair chance to be heard and there was no bias or prejudice in that decision. And because there's panels of three, and if I'm a minority opinion or a minority or dissenting opinion, because the other two decided the other way, my voice is not going to be the one that sets a precedent. It's the two of the majority. And that is why we have to elect individuals, regardless of party, who are going to do what's right, regardless of who you are or where you come from.
Wow. And yet you're the most qualified, and the GOP didn't endorse you. That is quite a shame to me that they don't look for overqualified or most qualified people to endorse, rather party favors. But somehow you managed to make it through the primary. Last time we were here, I was here with you. You showed the map of I think it was the yellow and orange map that you showed from the 2023 primary.
Yes.
So what does that map look like now, considering 2023 and compared to 2024?
Well, I wish I could share that map again, but my son's not with me. I won in 52, first place of 67 counties 2 years ago in the general election. In this past primary, I won in 55 of 67 counties with only two candidates. 2 years ago, it was four candidates. Um, we will still be very successful in those 52 counties. Where will I pick up additional counties? Westmoreland will be one of those because remember in 23 there were four candidates for two seats, so I had a teammate, Judge Smale, so he was from Westmoreland County. So since I don't have a teammate this time for the Superior Court, that's a dominant Republican county. I believe I will be very successful and win that county. So that's 53 counties. I do believe I'm going to flip Dauphin County. That's 54 counties. I lost Dauphin by less than 100 votes. I'm working very hard in
Wow.
Dauphin. So if I pick that up, that would be 54 counties. Berks County, of four candidates, I came in second place behind one Democrat of a candidate. I'm working very hard in Berks County. They are working very hard. Both the Republican Party and the Patriot Group, they're both working hard in their efforts. There's a big grassroots effort in Berks. And, I'm also, uh, I've met with many of I've met with some pastors in the Northeast and in the Southeast, um, in the Latino Hispanic community as well. I've received two different endorsements from that community. I've been in some of their churches in Lansdale, in Reading, in Harrisburg just yesterday, the first bilingual church. I have been embraced and been supported because they believe I share their values, and that's very important to people. That they believe that I'm one of them, that I share their values, and I want what's right for everyone. Everyone, you know, we have seen over the last 5 years, inflation. people struggling to pay their bills. Uh,
Mhm.
do they pay their rent, or do they feed their family? Do they pay their medical bills? Do they pay their taxes? They're just struggling to get by every single day. And if there's a few dollars left, and many times there isn't, and hopefully some of them have a savings that they can rely on, but many don't have that. You know, the last thing that they need is one more issue with one more person that impacts their life negatively, especially in the courts. And they're just asking for fairness. And I, I really resonated with not only the Latinos and Hispanics, but other groups, because they many people don't know who we are, but when they do meet me, they say, we like you. You seem like you're doing this for all the right reasons. And I am. I was not a recruited candidate. It's not something I decided yesterday. It was actually 15 years ago, um, when uh, Sandra Schultz Newman, who was the first female elected to the Supreme Court, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, a justice, that after I, put a legal symposium on about the Cash for Kids scandal in Luzerne County, it was aired statewide by Pennsylvania Cable Network. I had two justices and other judges on that panel, as well as the chief counsel for the Department of Education. We interviewed the judge advocate or the victim advocate, rather, Carol Avery from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and so many others. And Judge Grimm, who was the special master, he was reviewing those 5,000 cases. And I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. I did not have to do that, but I was teaching juvenile justice, criminal procedure, and administration of justice in addition to practicing. And I had explained what the breakdown, the issue of transparency. It was a travesty, not only for our Commonwealth and the court systems, but nationwide. It was one of the worst cases that we've ever seen. And so Justice Newman said to me, Maria, why aren't you running for judge? It was not even in my trajectory to ever run for judge. But she planted a seed, and I said, no one, how am I ever going to run for judge statewide when I come from such a tiny county? And she
Yeah.
said, we've seen, we've seen it before. At the time, Sally Mundy was able in Tioga County to get on the Superior Court in her 2007 election cycle and started serving in 2008. Now she's one of our two Republican justices on the Supreme Court. She really set a precedent for women in small rural counties to say, hey, maybe we do have a chance. Then we saw it again in 2021 with Stacey Wallace in McKean County, who was elected to the Commonwealth Court. But right now, we don't have any male or female judge on the Superior Court from a rural county. And I can be that voice, not only geographically representing the largest body of counties in Pennsylvania, but also someone that has the type of experience that lends itself to being a great judge on this court. And there's one other thing, Stephen, that I don't believe, I'm not 100% sure, that my two opponents have is I was a top mediator for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I was also a mediation director of the program under the governor's jurisdiction. And I settled all of my cases successfully. You're an independent third party trying to help facilitate two parties in a mediation. You're not taking one side or the other. And there's only one case that I did not settle during the mediation process, but it settled shortly thereafter, um, outside of my purview. And so, one of the skills, in addition to having excellent writing skills and interpersonal skills and communication skills when you're a sitting judge, is excellent listening skills. And to be a mediator and one that's able to settle that many cases successfully, you have to be an excellent listener. And I don't know my other opponents well enough to know what their skill set is in that realm, but I can tell you um, I would not have been as successful as I was as a mediator if I didn't have active listening skills, to truly not hear, listen uh, to what people have to say. And, it would be in the setting of oral arguments in the Superior Court versus hearing the live testimony that you would as a Court of Common Pleas judge. And so I bring that as well um, in my skill set and toolbox of skills that I can bring to the Superior Court. So
So
when
you
those
brought up
couple,
a
I'm
sure.
sorry, and Bucks County, we should be able to flip Bucks County. They turned red in
Oh
24.
yeah.
President Trump cycle. That county worked very, very hard. They flipped it red by 15,000 votes. They're about 10,000 votes red right now. And the other counties that we're really trying to focus on are Northampton and Monroe. And those are other two important counties that I'm trying to increase my numbers because both of us are from the key county. There's three candidates. One is from Pike County, but his practices in Bucks County are a third party candidate. But two of us are from the west of the three. So the east, the southeast, the northeast is wide open to be able to gain additional votes. And so we're working very hard in the eastern part of the state in addition to trying to maintain the T and our stronghold in the West so that we can bring a victory not just for Republicans, but for all Pennsylvanians. And, for any independents or unaffiliated that are on your call, please know I know that your registration is probably that way because you don't align with either party, and that is perfectly fine because it doesn't matter in a general election. What you do want is someone, regardless of who your party is, that you can believe is going to do what's right for all Pennsylvanians, and that's what I want to do.
So you brought up an interesting thing that you went to several churches in your campaign, and that has been a thing of the past, bringing in candidates to the churches because of the whole Johnson amendment and getting their taxes taken away from them, and that's what needs to happen. More is churches need to bring in candidates, put up candidates to because the Christian evangelical is the biggest voting bloc that the U.S. has right now, and they need to hear who's standing for justice and righteousness, and who's going to be fair and partial. Proverbs 29:2 says, "When the righteous increase, the people rejoice, and when the evil roll, the people groan." And so the people need to know who's righteous, who's fair, and who's not, who's God fearing in their elected offices. You also brought up the what was it? The thing that you were investigating with the children. Forget what it was called.
The
Cash for
Cash for
Kids.
Kids scandal. I
Yeah.
wasn't investigating, I was educating myself across the Commonwealth to what happened, interviewing all these people. So I guess you could say investigating, but I wasn't actually the one that was doing, the
Right.
office
So,
that was filing the charges. But it was to understand what happened and how can we bring trust back into our judicial system as a whole and the transparency that's necessary so that this never happens again.
So that leads me to my first question that I had was, how do you plan on working? How do you plan on working on the issues with children and youth services and the adoption and foster families? As we know that that's a kind of a issue with child trafficking and not going to right families and money, kind of money laundering as well.
Well, I can't speak specifically, as you know, as a judicial candidate on those issues.
Right.
Um, and uh, the only way that I would see those cases if it had an element in the types of areas of law that go to the Superior Court. So,
Okay.
say that there was an adoption case, for example, and say for some reason that one of the parties that adopted the child actually was a part of one of those other areas that you had just mentioned, that would have to be brought properly before the Superior Court. These are serious issues that are impacting our not only young girls but young boys, and it's very important that the prosecutors that are out there. That's not what I'm running for in our Attorney General's office and the DAs and those at the federal level do what they can in order to protect that vulnerable population. Um, I would see potentially something that had an element of that in the Superior Court, either on the criminal side or maybe something dealing with the child specifically. Uh, but I can't comment specifically except to say that that is really the prosecutorial arm that has to do their due diligence and try to get enough information in these types of cases that we can protect those children.
My second question was, what are some of the biggest criminal cases or issues that a Superior Court would have to trial, I guess?
Sorry, say that. Repeat that question again.
What are some of the biggest criminal cases or issues that a Superior Court judge would have to hear or trial?
Well, all criminal cases go there, so anything that you can think of and beyond can go to the Superior Court. You know, it's here's all criminal appeals. So it is that intermediate appellate court. It doesn't matter if it's something from a summary to a felony, to a homicide. They all, if appealed, would go to the Superior Court, and they're all important to whoever are the litigants in the case. So regardless of the level of the or the grading of a criminal matter, they're all important to the party for which the appeal has come. And so they all have to be treated with fairness and impartiality and given the due time that's necessary in order to make sure that they get that fair opportunity to be heard.
My other question was, what is your thoughts on the state budget funding for schools in Pennsylvania, and can the Superior Court handle that issue?
You're talking about the under the governor's jurisdiction, or funding just generally for schools in their communities?
Funding for schools generally.
So school funding cases, because it's a quasi-governmental agency, those cases would go to the Commonwealth Court, which my teammate Matt Wolford is running for. And there could be where they might have original jurisdiction on some of those cases, where they would actually get to see the parties and the testimony in original jurisdiction capacity.
Okay. In a PCN interview, you said you understand a child with special needs or disabilities. The special education department has a huge need for funding for materials and programs. How does the Superior Court deal with that, or how do you feel about that?
Again, you're talking about the actual budget that hasn't been passed yet by our legislature or governor. So I can't talk specifically about that. That's not the realm of what I would do as a judge. But what I can say is that if a case came up to the Superior Court that had the element of a child that had special needs, I have additional knowledge. I will not say expertise, but additional knowledge beyond what would be typically seen by an individual that's elected to this court, to bring insights to not only to myself, but my panel, to other judges, and maybe even become one of those trainers, not only for the Superior Court, but there are 67 counties, and there are a number of judges in the Court of Common Pleas, depending on how big your county is. And I could become one of those faculty members that help them understand how to address children in those types of sensitive cases, and to better diffuse a situation if a child who may not be able to control their behaviors, to diffuse the situation so that they can get to the heart of the case and what is truly in the best interest of that child.
Okay. So the next one is kind of long, but I'll shorten it. So also in your interview, you, as I said, you said that you dealt with special needs and disability, and you taught K through 12 and taught special needs there as well. You dealt with family matters as a lawyer. Have you ever had a case, or has a case ever come up where the teacher has abused the IEP and the child, and has taken that, the family has taken that to court for abuse?
I never did education law per se. I have the experience as an educator.
Right.
And the IEP process is very important to a child that has special needs.
Right.
And if a teacher is not, again, properly trained to be able to follow an IEP for that child, that's a problem. And that is where you need, again, that's not, depending on what the issue is, I would see it in the area of the best interest of the child. It could be a federal law that is impacted, with that process as well. So it really depends. It has to be very case specific. But what I can say is I know how to read an IEP. If that was part of the evidence that was brought up to the Superior Court, and someone claimed that a judge abused his or her discretion, and said that one parent, or whoever the party is, if they had standing, was better equipped to do that, I can certainly. I have a worldview and lens, if you will, an experience that I can probably grasp at a deeper level the types of issues that may come in a record that would be brought up to the Superior Court.
Okay. What is your stand on the gay sex issue in K through 12th grade, and how do you plan to rule to protect the children?
My responsibility is to uphold the laws and the Constitution. I cannot talk specifically on that issue. That's a very political issue, and I could do that if I was running for governor, state house, or state senate, U.S. Senate. A judicial candidate, again, you're supposed to be fair and impartial to all people. And
Right.
so that's not one that I can comment on.
All right. Right now in the state senate and the House has passed 4 gun control bills. What is your stance on ownership and Second Amendment?
So I didn't hear your whole question, but what I can say is this: I can't take positions per se, but I'm very conservative. I did get the endorsement of the Gun Owners of America. I got the endorsement of the FOAC, Firearm Owners Against Crime. I got the Sheriff Association's PAC endorsement. I work closely with law enforcement as a prosecutor. I have a great respect for protecting our communities. I also am a firearm owner, and I have a carry permit.
Okay. And of course you're a strict originalist, right? When it comes to, because that's what
constructionist for our
Scalia was.
Correct.
Oh, you're a constructionist. Yeah. So then you would go by what the actual interpretation of the second
by that Constitution. I do not believe that our Constitution is a living document.
Right, it was a contract. The last question I have was, or statement I have, or question is: your partner running with you, Matt Wolford, had admitted that he was never pro Second Amendment until he had a gun pointed at him, his own self. Then just recently became pro Second Amendment. He said in a PCN interview that his philosophy is judicial restraint and interpreting the Constitution as it is. How do you feel about Matt's contradiction of Second Amendment rights and judicial use?
Well, I didn't hear that I did not see his interview, so I can't
Uh,
comment on what he said or didn't say, or if you're reading it verbatim from what he said. What I can say is this: I have traveled with him over the last, well, since I guess the end of May. I've met his wife, who's absolutely lovely. Um, he's a very soft-spoken man, and he is trying to do what's right for all Pennsylvanians, just like I am. And he has a experience that it lends itself very well for the Commonwealth Court. There are only 9 judges on the Commonwealth Court, unlike the Superior Court that has 15, because the Superior Court is a busier court because of the types of law that go there. In the Commonwealth Court, you're dealing with government cases, whether it's at state agencies or municipal, local level cases or like school funding cases. Um, I think he would make a great jurist on the Commonwealth Court. And, you know, he did get the endorsement of the Gun Owners of America. He got the endorsement of the Sheriff Association PAC. And I do believe that he also got the Fraternal Order of Police's endorsement. So I don't, you know, people have, in different organizations, whatever they might be, you know, have viewed him as a very strong candidate in across the board. And so, you know, if you look at all of the candidates, you only have 2 candidates to vote for, you know, and I've traveled with him. I was just with him and his wife last night. You know, I think he's our best candidate for the Commonwealth Court. And, you know, he's a teammate, and we're both working hard to let voters know that uh, this is not about a party. It's not about politics. It's about trying to do what's right in every case and to uphold our laws and our Constitution. And I am confident, Matt, from hearing him speak, from seeing him in a variety of settings, including his wife, who's absolutely lovely. Um, she's an orthodontist. Uh, that he would represent all Pennsylvanians very well.
hmm. So, who exactly is the third party that is running against you guys?
Well, it's not Matt's cycle. It's or his court. It's my court. It's Dan Wassmer, and his party's called the Liberal Party. He ran, and I can't remember the name of the party. He ran in the U.S. Senate race when Dr. Oz was running. He had a different party he was affiliated with. Um, I believe I was talking to my son. I haven't read the article myself, so don't quote me on this. I think his only goal is to get like 2% in this race in order to recognize the Liberal Party as an official party in Pennsylvania. But again, I've only met him through
Well,
Zoom for the League of Women Voters had a Zoom call, so all 3 of us were speaking on that. That's really the first time I've had an opportunity to see him like I'm speaking to you right now in a setting where we're all getting an opportunity to speak. I, he did have an interview, I believe, with PCN. I haven't had a chance to look at those other interviews. I'm trying to focus on my race and trying to reach as many
yeah.
voters as possible. Um, I believe I'm the right candidate at the right time with the right experience, and I also bring geographic representation for this court. And I am trying to get my message out. You know, I'll leave you with this, and that is one of the things that if I remember to say it, is I ask people, do you believe, regardless of who you are, your party, do you believe when Trump turned his head just enough that it saved his life and it was divine intervention? and I asked for a show of hands in a room. Almost all, if not all, hands go up. He was saved for a reason. If you go back to my election in 2022, and we are now on October 13th, on October 22nd, 2022, I was hit by a car as a pedestrian,
I remember that.
putting out a sign. It was all over the news.
You were
And it was
supposed
a
to show
Sunday
up for
night.
the York GOP fall dinner that day, and you got hit by a car.
Yes. So that was a Sunday. I was in an inner city church in Harrisburg that morning, and they prayed over me. I don't think I actually spoke at the church, but they asked me to come up and they prayed over me. Just,
Wow.
to pray over me. And then they said, in the prayer, it was like, keep her safe in her travels. That's
Amen.
what I remember the most, because it was that night that the car hit me. I should have been dead. I should have been quadriplegic or paraplegic. And I wasn't. I did have a fractured hip, a broken collarbone, a massive concussion. I found out in February. I had 2 torn
Yep.
rotator cuffs. I still have issues with some of those physical injuries. I still have to have surgery on my left shoulder. And I do believe it was divine intervention, just like Trump was saved. And,
Or even George Washington was shot 3 times off his horse and still not dead, in order for us to do the Constitution Convention.
there is a higher power. I believe in God. And this race, this time, people sent prayers last time, but it's not the same as it is this time. There are prayer warriors this time all over the Commonwealth. My scheduler the last time was the one that would pray with me the most. But this time, there's prayer warriors all over the Commonwealth. You yourself send me different texts to keep me focused, and they're all over the Commonwealth. You can have a leader, you can have someone that you want to be a judge, but you have to have the people in the grassroots that believe in you, just like they believed in George Washington.
Yep.
And the only reason why I believe I won in this primary, one, I was known from 2 years ago, but there was an uproar truly in the grassroots. And they said, why didn't you get the endorsement? And they worked their hearts out for me. And there was no guarantee. I didn't raise the money in the primary. I couldn't even raise $20,000 and over $430,000 between in-kind contributions and direct contributions. Were against me. And I said to my son and others, it's like, I thought the wind was at our back, but when all these mailers are coming out and text messaging and every other thing, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if we can pull through this primary. And yet, despite all of that, we won 55 of 67 counties, and the race was called before 10:30 at night, and I won by over 53,000 votes. And that's not to say that my opponent was not a good person, but the people knew who they wanted, who they believed in. And I can tell you that we're all rowing in the same direction now. We only have 22 days left to go.
We fought for both you and Josh Prince because both of you got screwed over in the primary endorsement, and the grassroots are sick and tired of the PA GOP putting up people that we don't approve of.
Well, what I can say is we have to put that conversation to bed right now, because right now we have very few days left. The Republican Party, the grassroots, the Patriots, all the people in this Commonwealth are rowing in the same direction. We can
Yeah.
win, but we need everybody. This
And
boat
I think it's
is large enough for all
even
people.
bigger now.
They are helping. Everyone is helping. They have been on board since the primary. And I can tell you that uh, so many chairs across this Commonwealth have been going the 11th degree, the 11th mile to help me get across the finish line. And I am so
That's
incredibly
great.
grateful, not only for the grassroots, but for the Republican Party as a whole. We want two candidates for the Superior and the Commonwealth Court
Yep.
that are going to represent all Pennsylvanians. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm going to do.
I
And
think it's going
that
to
is what
be
Matt
bigger now
Milford is committed to
as to why
doing.
people switch parties.
And listen, let's not focus anymore on the primary. Let's focus on, what can we do as
Right.
voters to help get us over the finish line. We've got 3 weeks left. That's it. 3 weeks. So, what can
Right.
you do as a listener to help our campaign? If you want to volunteer and help us in these last 3 weeks, you can volunteer on our website at batistaforjudge.com, BATTISTA for judge.com. If you want a sign, every party has a sign, but we actually have signs also reserved that if I'm traveling or we can try to get you a sign, we're happy to do that. Please call your family and friends that you know that are going to come out to vote. I don't care what party they are. If you believe I'm the right candidate and you can explain to them what I explained to you on your show today, that all criminal cases and most civil that impact your daily lives impact you every day. It does not matter, by the way, I don't think I said this, even if you're never a party to an action, because these decisions in about 97% of cases becomes final. Those decisions impact each and every one of us every single day, even if we're never a party to an action. I've had district attorneys call me saying, Maria, you won't believe what just happened in the Superior Court. This case now is going to impact my ability to keep our community safe with our law enforcement based on how this came down. We must elect judges. And if you believe I'm the right person, maybe you don't, but if you believe I'm the right person to sit in that next seat on the Superior Court, then I need your help to spread the word via text, via phone call. If you know someone that is going to have trouble getting to the polls, please do it. Please consider a mail in ballot. There is no downfall for that. The last day for a mail in ballot is October 28th. This is what I tell people. I'm not fond of them, but we must use them on the offense. I will be using a mail in ballot myself, but I will be going to the actual voter registration office. I will be filling it out and voting that exact day and handing it right there to the individuals that are working. I won't go through the mail. But here's the other benefit of having a mail in ballot, even if you never use it. If you want to vote at the polls, wonderful. But if you request it before October 28th, you have it in your hand. If you get into an emergency, that's a plan B. It also helps you that if you get it and you know you're going to vote in person, you bring it with you, because if you don't, you're going to be voting provisionally. But if you bring your mail in ballot with you with the two envelopes, everything together, you can relinquish it and vote as you normally would. But no one can tell you when you go into your polling place that you've already voted by mail in ballot, because you have the proof in your hands. If you don't request your mail in
Yep.
ballot and someone tells you at your voting poll that, oh, I'm sorry, you can't vote like you normally would, you can only vote provisionally because it says here that you voted by mail in ballot, and you say, well, I didn't, you have no proof that you didn't. So if you have your mail in ballot with you with your two envelopes, you can protect your identity in any potential fraud that there might be. And I'm not saying it's out there, I'm saying people make mistakes. And so this was a way, there's no downfall of having a mail in ballot, either to protect your identity when you go in person, you relinquish it, or that in the emergency you can use it that way, or you can actually use it. You can go on demand and vote at your voter registration office, or you can mail it. When I worked under Governor Corbett, I was in Harrisburg. So if I couldn't go home on election day to vote, then what I would do is I would do certified mail return receipt. And I'm not telling people to spend $26 or $27 or whatever it is now, but there's ways to protect, to make sure that it's also received if you don't want to put it through the regular mail and you don't have the ability or you have limitations in your mobility to get it to the voter registration office. So please do consider getting a mail-in ballot for the reasons that I shared with you. There's no downfall, and it protects your identity and it protects your ability to make sure that you have the chance to vote, whether it's on election day or through that mail-in ballot. And so, for all the listeners out there, I just appreciate your opportunity of listening to me, and I do believe that I am the right choice with the right experience at the right time to be the judicial candidate
Absolutely.
for our times for the Superior Court, and I would be honored and humbled to have your vote on November 4th or by mail-in ballot. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Also,
I
it is
have
not
another call
too
coming up here. So thank you, Stephen, so much for letting me
it's
be
not
on
too
your
late
call. I
to
appreciate
register to
this
vote as well.
opportunity. Thank you.
Also, it's not too late to register to vote as well.
Correct.
Like every time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Correct.